Coming up, a titillating tale of the Green Muse,
The creative power of notebooks.
plus our distraction of the week. I'm Mel.
I'm Dave. This is the Library of Lost Time.
We've got a great special guest today. His name is Evan Rail, and he's one of our neighbors here in Prague, but that's not why he's our guest. He also happens to be a fantastic travel writer and author of the new book, The Absinthe Forger, a true story of deception, betrayal, and the world's most dangerous spirit.
Yeah, Absinthe is back.
I'm not much of a wine or beer drinker, but give me a tiny glass of something bitter
Yeah.
that's maybe a vivid color, and I am all in. Red Campari, orange Aperol, and of course, lurid green absinthe.
As I recall, it's got a really licorice-y kind of thing about it.
It does. It is very anise forward.
Yeah.
In addition to that licorice flavor, it's got sweet fennel, so it does have a little sweetness to it. And sometimes distillers add an herb called Melissa.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's nice.
In the States, we call it lemon balm. But the ingredient that gives absinthe its slutty reputation
Oh,
is wormwood.
yes.
Thanks to 19th century artists and writers drinking it, and maybe having hallucinations, absinthe got the nickname the Green Muse, or the Green Fairy. Bohemians like Toulouse-Lautrec, Vincent van Gogh, Edouard Manet, Oscar Wilde, and Ernest Hemingway all cranked up their creativity by drinking absinthe.
So the greatest minds of the last century.
And not people you would really trust to take care of your dog.
Accurate.
Modern science says wormwood will not cause hallucinations. Sorry to disappoint everyone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
But its notoriety persists. Absinthe made with wormwood was banned for about 100 years, starting in the early 1900s. I think we all know that banning something can sometimes only make it more enticing.
Yeah.
And that's where Evan Rail's new book comes in. This book, The Absinthe Forger, is nonfiction that reads like a thriller. It's a true crime story about a con artist who sold fake pre-1915 absinthe to fans in the Absinthe Underground. Absinthe Underground, name of our new punk band.
And our big hit, Absinthe Makes the Heart Grow Fonder.
It's romantic, but angry. So, this book takes you into the Absinthe Underground and the quest for vintage bottles of the illicit Green Fairy. There's forgery and chicanery and amateur sleuths. It's kind of reading experience that makes you want to use the word romp. It'll also give you a yearning to time travel to Belle Époque Paris or Prague to sip some absinthe yourself.
I do not need a lot of motivation to want to time travel back to Belle Époque Paris, drink absinthe with Oscar Wilde and the rest of those men you named.
Okay, let me lay this on you.
Okay.
Here's a snippet from the book. There was something different about historic absinthe beyond its age, beyond the fact that you were aware while drinking it that this very spirit might have been drunk by Charles Baudelaire or Oscar Wilde, that this very bottle might have been held to the frilly breast of a can-can girl at the Moulin Rouge or touched by the hand of Gauguin. Beyond the frisson of their time-shifting possibilities, the old absinthe simply tasted different, oxidized a bit, of course, hinting of old cardboard or a hot, stuffy room, but shifted along the flavor spectrum in other ways, too. Even the best new absinthe seemed to be missing something at the center, an obvious hole where their heart should be.
That's evocative.
Some good stuff, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Evan Rail, fantastic writer. The narrative unravels mysteries within mysteries as Evan delves into the history of absinthe, the forger's story, and the connoisseurs who unmasked him. They're just some internet amateur sleuths who figured out what this guy was up to.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Along the way, Evan also meets new distillers around Europe who are making modern absinthe, and he is a very delightful, charming traveling companion. Even though the story begins with a con artist and it's kind of a big caper, it's also about embracing the romantic and inviting the idea of magic into our lives.
Yeah.
That feeling of sitting in a dim bar, sipping something that's maybe a little dangerous and musing about the world. The book is The Absinthe Forger by Evan Rail.
Awesome. I am a visual thinker, and I like writing things down. So for me, that means I have 6 different notebooks sitting on my desk right now. I've got a journal. I've got a notebook for thinking about new things. I've got a sketchbook. I've got another notebook for a writing project that I'm doing. I've got a notebook for a game that I'm playing. I've got a notebook for keeping track of books I've read. I probably got another 20 mostly full notebooks in the apartment. They're a trail of thoughts and ideas that lead back over the last decade or so. So notebooks are a thing for me. I write bits down so I don't have to think about them. And when I think about them, I can see all the bits together on the page. And I feel like it works for both me and the notebook. That's why when a new book came across my computer screen, I was delighted. The book is called The Notebook, A History of Thinking on Paper by Roland Allen. This is an exploration of notebooks, as you might imagine. The introduction starts with a story behind the moleskin, and from there we plunge back into history to 1000 BCE.
Wow.
Yeah. Chapter 1 starts, "The oldest item that looks to modern eyes like a notebook sits in a display case in a castle in a Turkish city, thousands of years ago a thriving commercial and intellectual hub, and now an equally busy holiday resort. In exemplary displays, the Bodrum Museum of Underwater Archaeology shows off items recovered from the bottom of the Mediterranean. The Ulu Burun shipwreck is one of its glories, and its gallery dedicates a display case to a small wooden ivory item, a hinged writing tablet which, when folded shut, would sit nicely on the palm of your hand."
There are so many nice ideas in those sentences.
I know. I was very impressed with how delightful that paragraph is. So from there, we're off on the history of notebooks and the people who've used them. We visit Leonardo and Chaucer, Magellan, Darwin. Agatha Christie preferred school essay books for her notes.
There was a time when I would only take notes in a Mead composition book with the black and white marbled cover and college-ruled paper inside.
Yeah. Agatha Christie had whatever the English version of that is, and apparently filled many, many, many of them. Allen writes about the rise of travel journals and authors' notebooks. We get into bullet journals and police notebooks. Most of this is kind of given around a good story or two. There are tons of illustrations and photos. If, like me, you're fond of a nice notebook and curious about what others have done with theirs, this is a great read. It's The Notebook, A History of Thinking on Paper by Roland Allen, and it's out now.
So let's raise a glass, my friend, before the night's true madness begins, as it makes the heart go fonder.
We're talking with Evan Rail. Evan's the author of The Absinthe Forger, a true story of deception, betrayal, and the world's most dangerous spirit. It's the book that Mel just told you all about. Evan, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
So I understand you have a distraction of the week for us.
Yeah, it's been my distraction of the year. I got into fountain pens. Originally, accidentally, I was traveling across France and I needed to buy a pen and a postcard to mail a note to a friend back home. And the pen was a fountain pen, which I didn't realize when I bought it. This is about 30 years ago, I guess. I was in college still. And I've had that fountain pen since then. And when I had a nice publication earlier in my career, a few years after college, I bought a fountain pen. And then I just bought another one when I turned in the manuscript for The Absinthe Forger.
Right on. So this is sort of a gift you give yourself when a major milestone happens?
Yeah, it's a gift I give myself, or it's an accident that happens when I don't speak French well enough to ask for a correct type of pen in a stationery store in the town of Nancy in 1994. But I have a few of them. And I know that people really obsess about fountain pens and they get really into the pens. But what's been more interesting for me are the inks. So with fountain pens, you can select different types of ink to fill each pen with, and you can have different colors and they have different viscosity and other characteristics. And for me, the real fun this year has been discovering this world of fountain pen inks and getting into them, and just sort of realizing that each pen and each ink has a character of its own, a sort of personality of its own. And sometimes I reach for a certain pen and I know what I'm about to write. And I say, no, actually, I want this other one. And it's actually the words themselves that are coming out, or the ideas or whatever it is I'm working on have a character of their own that seems to match up with the writing utensil.
So let's get into this. What kind of fountain pens do you own? What are the brand names?
Oh, they're pretty modest. I mean, fountain pens are obviously often quite expensive, and I just have really cheap ones because I'm not a collector so much as a writer. I use them to make notes and make lists and everything. All of the notes that I made for my book was all written out with fountain pens. It's normally, but I have a few here and a few inks that really speak to me. And the inks that I've been focusing on are mostly produced in Europe. Interestingly, we live here in Central Europe. There are quite a few that come from Germany. There's a famous brand, Pelikan, makes pens, Pelikan pens, but there are these really obscure ink makers. And one is from effectively just up the road in Leipzig. It's called Rohrer und Klingner. And Rohrer and Klingner has been making inks for, 200 years or something. And their branding is as if they haven't really updated them in the past 50 years. So they're quite out of date, charmingly out of date, charmingly not trendy. And they make wonderful inks with really good character. Right now I have a couple of pens that are filled with Rohrer and Klingner inks. And one of them is this wonderful green that's called Alt Goldgrün. Old gold green. And it's an ink that goes between gold or yellow to a sort of deep forest green. Not a bright green, but a deep one. And there's kind of nice overtones of shading and little touches that when you write with it, you might get both tones in the same word or the same letter.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you use the gold green ink for?
Oh, I use that for journaling lately.
Okay.
So I write a journal to keep myself honest, to touch base with myself. So to sort of keep track of the people I used to be, stay in touch with them.
That's a really nice way to put that.
Yeah, it keeps me, I feel like it keeps me on track and keeps me honest about what my goals are for the year. And it's really easy to forget if I don't write them down. Yeah. And where I'm going and, how I'm going through my life, interacting with the people who matter most to me, my family and my friends. So I keep a journal, and that Alt Goldgrün ink is in a really nice little pen, a German pen, a Kaweco Sport. It's a pen I bought even recently. I was in France. I was back in Paris, and I went to a little pen shop, and I bought this little pen, this Kaweco Sport, and I have that ink in there. So that's an ink I'm going to keep in that pen, I think, forever.
Yeah,
as my daily writer.
What other colors do you keep?
Well, one of the things that got me really interested in ink was that I accidentally bought some brown ink in a cartridge format 20 years ago, and they discontinued it. It was Parker Quink, which is Parker's ink cartridge format or ink brand. And it was in a cartridge. Then they stopped making this brown ink in cartridges. So I've been searching like someone trying to recover past pleasures or past memories. I've been looking for a brown ink, the one brown ink that speaks to me, that seems like the right brown ink for this specific Parker pen that I have that I bought 25 years ago.
You've got ink nostalgia.
I have an ink nostalgia. Yeah. and I really wanted to find a brown ink, and I didn't find an exact match. But there's a wonderful ink from a French producer called Herbin. Herbin's been making ink for another 250 years or so, and it's called LoLT. It means literally tea dregs, or dregs from the tea, like the stuff that's in the bottom of the teacup when you finish your glass.
The names are so cool.
They are poetic, aren't they?
Yeah.
The names are very poetic. Yeah, they sometimes I don't even know what they mean. There's an ink here, a really wonderful deep purple called Solferino, which I will have to look up what that means. and then of course the one that gets used the most in this house is probably Writer's Blood.
Oh, nice. So I have a final question for you. Will you be signing your Absinthe book with the green ink?
Yes. But it's actually a different green ink that I plan to use. Now, there was an an ink that came out a couple of years ago, and I've been lucky enough to use it. It's called Bloody Absinthe, but it's not the
Stop
right.
it.
It's a lovely name, and again, that poetry of the name, and it is a green ink with red overtones, and it's neat, but it's not quite the ink that I want or the ink that I wanted. And I'll be using a similar ink, but a different one, I think, which is called Aurora Borealis. And it's also by Diamine. It's an English producer. It's a greenish, reddish ink that has overtones and just weird highlights that come through. And I'll be using that ink to sign books when I'm
Fantastic.
lucky enough to do that.
Visit strongsenseofplace.com/library for more on the books we talked about today and links to fuel your own pen and ink obsession.
Thanks for joining us on the Library of Lost Time. Remember to visit your local library and your independent bookstore to lose some time yourself.
Stay curious. We'll talk to you soon.
I don't have much time. I am being transported by the ecclesiad vessel Merkava to stand trial for heresy of the highest order. But I will not renounce my work, and to my last breath I will speak the truth of this plague-ridden world, that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The Heresies of Red Elf Buntwine, Chapter 2, coming May 1st.